Okay, Grand Rising. Grief, accountability, and learning to name what was never asked. I'm going to be reading today, and I want to name that first. I still get nervous with public speaking, especially when I'm sharing something layered, personal, and unfinished. Reading helps me slow down, stay grounded, and say what I actually mean instead of rushing past it. So thank you for being here with me this morning. Thank you for being here with me this rise. I want to say this clearly. This is not a call out. This is not blame. This is not an accusation. This is reflection. And reflection sometimes is uncomfortable because it requires honesty about others, not just about others, but about ourselves. The childhood incident and what actually happened. When I was about 7 years old, my sister Elorie was 8. Our mother told Elorie to take my clothes off and put me outside. Elorie tried. I fought her. I'll say that again. Elorie tried, and I fought her. And then my mother stepped in and put me outside herself. That distinction matters. For a long time, while I was still a child, I blamed Elorie. Then I blamed Elorie and my uncle, even though my uncle did not witness what happened. Then I blamed just my uncle. Then I finally blamed my mother. Why did I blame my uncle? Because later, my uncle yelled at both my mom and Elorie. Each shift blame happened while I was still a child, trying to make sense of something my body remembered, but my mind didn't yet have the language for. What I see now, this blame moved as my understanding evolved. Not because the truth changed, but because my capacity to understand it did. The conversation about Darlene. Recently, Elorie and I had a conversation that stayed with me. I had once said to my sister Darlene about her childhood experience. Darlene was 3. The twin boys were about 4 or 5. At the time I was thinking, children that young should have been supervised. If an adult had been present, none of that would have happened. My intent was not to minimize harm. It was to place responsibility on adult supervision. Elorie responded by saying what I said minimized Darlene's experience. And I want to be clear here. Elorie did not say this harsh, accusatory, or judgmental. What I felt in that moment was defensiveness. It was the beginning of understanding something deeper. What I felt in that moment wasn't defensiveness. It was in the beginning of understanding something deeper. What I understood now about that moment. I do not believe Elorie was trying to speak for Darlin in a controlling way. I also don't believe she was trying to shame me. What I believe now is this. Elorie was expressing what Elorie would have needed if she were in Darlin's place. Now, not what Darlin necessarily needed. And I don't think that Elorie did that intentionally. I think she was speaking from her own internal framework, her own unmet needs, her own sense of what acknowledgement looked like. And here's the truth I'm sitting with. Elorie and I can both be wrong. And the only person who truly knows what Darlin needed or needs is Darlin herself. Even if she's unable to communicate it, that matters. The apology and what I actually needed. Years ago, Elorie apologized for throwing me outside naked. She apologized because she believed that's what I needed. And this is where something clicked for me. I didn't need an apology from Elorie. I understood Elorie and I were both children. Elorie was doing what Elorie was told, or attempted to do what she was told. What I needed and still need is accountability from the adult who made the decision, the adult with the power, the adult with the authority, the adult responsible. Elorie gave me what she thought I needed, likely based on what she needed herself in order to make sense of what happened. And here's the truth. Because I never received adult accountability, later I learned to explain harm through logic, through supervision, through responsibility, through blame placement, not impact. That doesn't make me cruel. It makes me human. How this shows up in grief. This pattern didn't stop in childhood. When my father passed away, I didn't want to sleep over Darlin's house. I did not want to stop working. I did not want gifted clothes. I did not want my hair or makeup done. I did not want rides. Even though I didn't have a car, Darlin gave me many rides to make it easier to get to her house. What I wanted was to be home alone. One sibling said to me, "Your father dies once," and that they wanted to be together, and they wanted to be together with other siblings. I understand that, but I didn't push back because I had 5 siblings and their partners in my ear telling me what I needed. So I did what everyone else thought grief should look like. And now, years later, I can honestly say I don't think I ever got to grieve my father. I was too busy accommodating, too busy surviving, too busy listening. Listening that failed and the anger that comes with it. When I push back on what I need, even gently, I'm often told, "Candida, you don't like to listen to other people." But when I do listen and it fails, I explain that I did listen, that I followed the advice, and that it failed. The response changes too. "That's not what I meant." That doesn't confuse me. It annoys me. And sometimes it pisses me off. especially when people continue to push what they think is right, even after it didn't work. That's not support, that's projection. A cultural mirror. Christian rock and tzatziki. While sitting with all of this, I thought about Christian rock and her sister, Latifah Tzatziki Malone. One real Christian said she wasn't blaming her sister. They should have been supervised. People said she shouldn't have brought it up, that it was a family issue, that it should have stayed private. Tzatziki denies the claim, and here's what I know to be true. Some people erase traumatic memories. Some people remember things that didn't happen. Some people lie. And sometimes more than one truth exists. What I do know is everyone in the situations I've mentioned everyone in the situations I mentioned could benefit from someone safe to talk to, without fixing, without silencing, without denying, without deciding what they should need. Why this connects with WithMother. This is why WithMother exists. Not because homes are messy, but because life gets heavy. Because survival mode lives in our bodies. Because environments matter. Because dignity matters. Because support should never look like control. If you need help resetting your space, we're here. If you need breathing room, we're here. If you want to quietly support another family through our community care model, you can. No spotlight, no trauma mining, just care. Why this live is also a podcast. I never thought these lives could be podcasts. I always imagined a visual podcast, YouTube cameras, big production, perfection. But I've already done several lives on sensitive topics. And I realized the conversations are already happening. So yes, this live will also live as a podcast. This is a soft launch. No pressure. No perfection. Just sharing. In closing, if this resonates with you, thank you for listening. If it didn't, thank you for staying curious. Care deserves slowness, but courage sometimes requires movement with love. Thank you.